learn to sketch, use basic supplies, and practice. That's where most of us start because that's what everyone else does. The problem is it's hard, it takes forever, and let's say it's boring. That's why in this video, I'm testing certain tools and supplies that could make the entire drawing process a lot more fun. And the first thing you could do is you could shortcut your way to sketching. And I have a dirty little secret to share because every time I do this, I feel ashamed when I use tracing paper, for instance. And I'll freehand all my drawings because this is my job. I teach art. But as much as learning drawing fundamentals matters, let's be real. Sometimes spending ages on a sketch that doesn't even turn out that great is not the most motivating thing in the world to keep going. That's why before working on this portrait, I'll try out Etter Mirror for the first time. It's a tool that is supposed to make sketching really easy. For full transparency, I was curious about this mirror ever since it came out. So when Etter offered to partner up again, I knew this was something I needed to try. I never feature anything I'm not interested in. And I was going for a standard review of this product at first, and then I realized that this is just the first component to a method that could help many improve their drawing skills. Etter provides the mirror and the plastic parts it goes on, as well as some drawing paper and a little booklet that explains how this works. Assembling everything is really fast and simple, and just download the app for the mirror after putting it all together, find your photo, and it's ready. My experience was tedious at first because I couldn't work out the iPad since it's not mine, and I didn't know where half the settings could be found, and then I couldn't download the app because I didn't have the password. It was a hectic start, and that's why I tried it from my phone as well, and it works just as good, but for what I was going for, the sketch was going to be a little too small. So with the Etter Mirror, you won't be able to sketch large pieces for sure, but I think it's better to practice on smaller subjects as a beginner than to go big right away. After I finally figured out the iPad, I got to explore the app. And what's cool is there are several settings that you can try, but there are not too many either, so it's simple to navigate. So for example, you can flip a photo, you can rotate it, and the best and most effective settings for tracing I found is to turn the photo into a sketch or a black and white drawing. And from there, you can adjust a bunch of things, including the luminosity and the positioning of the sketch on paper. I love the sketch setting in particular because you can see how much more simple my complex photo was looking. The weird part, and you can quickly get used to this, is to trace while focusing on the reflection of the actual drawing and not your hand underneath. And I found it to be so distracting at first, but once I figured out I needed to concentrate on the reflection, relax, and just forget about staring at my pencil underneath. It went smoothly and it was fast. And also, a tip for you if you want to try this out, don't move your head or body while doing this. Otherwise, the way you view the sketching lines will move with you. You'll still be able to see the drawing slightly underneath the mirror, so if that happens, just move again so both sketches align again. I was pretty impressed with the result because for me, portraits is still hard to sketch in correct proportions and it takes me hours, while for simple subjects, I'm pretty fast. You'll notice with this Etter Mirror, there could be minor tweaks to add to your sketch, things you forgot for example, but overall it's convenient and it can be a good tool to have for beginners who just want to get to the drawing or painting part faster. As a more advanced artist, I know I'll use this mirror when I want to check my proportions by comparing my own free-handed sketch with that from the mirror. I think it could help me improve faster because I'll be able to quickly see where I'm going wrong. So I think this is a fantastic tool. And thank you, Etter, for sending this over. I'll place a link to it in the description of my video along with my other supplies. Another way to rethink drawing and the whole process is to go for convenient supplies and not necessarily the ones that everyone else uses. I find that a pencil that is made of a soft material like soft pastels or charcoal is easier, more forgiving than regular graphite pencils. And I'm actually using Blackstone now by Comte à Paris. The pigment is easy to apply, it blends into the paper really easily. It's even easier to create a gradient by using a blending stump. If you just pull some of the pigment you are blending nearby. You can find these types of pencils in a set altogether, and usually you'll also have a soft white pencil to allow you to create those bright highlights. While common graphite pencils are simple to find and use, there are a lot of types to choose from. Some are hard, some are soft, and they don't all yield the same result. If you don't know how to color properly, you might find yourself indenting the paper by pressing too hard, or you might end up with a lot of start and stop points from the pencil strokes, which makes it even more difficult to draw realistically. What I love about this type of softer pencil is that it's easy to erase, and it's also easy to sharpen whenever you need to work in more detail. My drawing is pretty small, and this ear is even smaller, and I have no trouble coloring. I also like it's fast to cover a large area because it's a soft material, which isn't the case of graphite pencils. Here you have to be less careful, although I recommend to still draw with circular motions, because even if start and stop points are less of a thing with this Blackstone pencil, the drawing will be much smoother in the end. Another tool that I would recommend to a beginner who is struggling to draw realistically is to use toned paper. Why toned and not white? Because unlike white paper, it's either a light gray or a tan that you'll find usually, and you can use that color as your midtones. Now let me explain with the drawing that I'm working on. To draw realistically, you want to pay attention to the dark areas and the light areas in your reference. They are what create shape, along with everything in between, the midtone. If you fail to add dark and light areas to a drawing, it will be flat like this paper. That's why I'm using my blending stump to pull the dark Blackstone pigment over to areas that aren't supposed to be as dark as the hat and the darker shadows, and that really helps in creating several values in the drawing. I even use another piece of paper to clean up my blending stump when I need that, and especially when I need the lightest touch of Blackstone to slowly disappear into the paper. White paper is so bright that we'll have to block in the midtones, but also the dark tones and also the highlights, because not all highlights are really bright. But with midtones, it's a little bit easier, I find, because you can utilize gradients to have your dark tones melt into the midtones, the paper, and in the same way, you can have your light tones melt into the paper as well. By using a toned paper, yes, you'll need to get used to the idea that the paper color is your midtone. And yes, you will need to practice creating good gradients. And also, yes, you will need to learn and observe your reference to find these tones. And that might take a bit of practice and a bit of time. And if you want to get started with something easy in that vibe, head over to my Patreon and try it out in real time with my guidance throughout the drawing. But above all, and above the fact that you have to learn some skills still, what I love about the concept of using toned paper is that you only need to focus on the dark tones in your photo and on the highlights, which I think makes it a bit less overwhelming to draw, because you can train yourself to spot only those areas, dark and bright, and slowly refine your observation and gradient skills so both dark and light areas disappear into your midtones accurately. And then I recommend to take a step back frequently during the process and look at your drawing again to actually spot where you need to adjust the gradients so the transition between those dark and light tones and the midtones is as smooth as possible. It's also easier to treat this kind of drawing by taking it section after section, and to also start with the dark parts and finish with the highlights. And notice also how well this white pencil is going over the dark parts. I also love that the pencil tips help create those script details as well. It is also really easy to layer to add depth. I'm thrilled to see this drawing turn out just like the reference, and it really goes to show how efficient this Etter Mirror is. I hope this video brought something new to the table and gave you some ideas to implement. You can find all my supplies in the description and check out this drawing playlist to see more. So see you there or on Patreon, and thank you so much for watching.